So I'm just going to record that session. Okay. All right. Right. Everybody can see the screen there? Right. Okay, cool. All right, perfect. All right, thank you so much for joining today, everyone. Welcome to Adults English. So in today's training, we are focusing on accuracy versus fluency. All right, so let's get started. At any point, if you have a question, please do just jump in, or perhaps you have some experience with accuracy versus fluency, and you would like to add your points in as well. That's always welcome into the session. All right, so let's define accuracy and fluency. All right, so if you speak English with a high level of accuracy, it means you speak correctly with very few mistakes. So their grammar is on point, basically. Their vocabulary is advanced, their word order is correct. But if you speak fluently, it means you speak easily, quickly, with few pauses in between. The ideal is obviously for both of these to be married, and your language learner is speaking with accuracy and with fluency. All right, so that is obviously for most of our learners the target in their lessons. You might get one or two students that just want to chat with you, or maybe even more, that would just like to chat and just practice their language skills. But for the most part, most of them would like to have accuracy as well as fluency in their lessons. All right, so let's talk more a bit about this. All right, so mistakes are usually corrected immediately when the aim of the lesson is to actually promote accuracy. But we want to promote this accuracy when we are doing drilling, right? So this is going to be your grammar exercises, your vocabulary exercises, your vocabulary extension, your fill in the gap, you know, anything like that. So accuracy is something built over time. It's something that, you know, we can't require the student to get immediately. So it's something that we'll have to do multiple drills. All right. And it's through repetition. It's the logical side of the brain. It's through thinking, it's through education, and it's also through explaining why. All right. Whereas the aim for fluency, however, is less intrusive. All right. It's a gentle approach. It's delayed correction. So we aren't actually going to correct the students immediately with fluency when the target is fluency. Why? Because when we are targeting fluency, usually we are targeting, or we are eliciting or facilitating conversation. We are asking or requiring our students to share their opinion, and this is going to disrupt the flow of the activity. It's going to disrupt the flow of the discussion or the lesson, right? So we want to delay, or we want to gently correct our students when the aim is fluency. Right, so we're going to see that our approaches will differ when our targets are different, so accuracy and fluency. Right, so again, both of these things, as you know, as English teachers, are both built up over time, but both of our approaches are quite different. Right, so attention to mistakes in these stages improves the chances of the correct use of language later. All right, so with the accuracy, when we are paying attention to their mistakes, right, that's when the confidence, they aren't paying attention to, you're not going to break their confidence down when we're in the middle of a grammar exercise or fill in the blank. There's no confidence attached to those exercises for them. But when they are, again, sharing quite an in-depth opinion about something, we spoke a little bit about this last week with regards to some topics being quite heavy, with regards to maybe stress, with regards to maybe personal opinions, belief systems. Those topics can be quite heavy for a student. So sharing those, they're being quite vulnerable. If we are kind of constantly correcting them in that phase, the confidence can be quite, it can be damaged in a way. So then again, that isn't going to be conducive or promote their talk time. all right? And they might be a little bit nervous to speak throughout that conversation lesson. So again, time and place is very important for correction. Again, the goal of the lesson is to give them valuable educational value in the lesson, but at the same time, we also want to promote speaking for them, right? So how can we promote both of these? So since the methods of promoting accuracy and fluency tend to differ, and so we want to promote them in our conversation lessons. So we can either section the lessons into parts conducive to both areas of learning, which we can discuss in the next few slides. And we can also change our approach for the area of learning, right? So let's go ahead and have a look here at the next slide on how we can customize our approach in the area of learning. So picture this kind of approach. Your approach is like a brain, right? So we have the right side of the brain and we have the left side of the brain. The right side of the brain is going to be conducive to your conversation. It's the creative side of the brain. It's where all your opinions are held. It's your emotions, it's your feelings, it's your interest, your discussion, your passion, all of that good stuff, that meaty stuff. Then you've got your left side of the brain that's responsible for your grammar, your logical thinking, your reading, your writing, your speech skills, your facts, your language, your counting ability, your time management, all the very logical, very needed skills to learn a language. All right. Both of these sides are incredibly important in teaching and learning a language. However, the approaches do differ, and as I'm sure you all know. All right. So how do we customize our approach? So on the right-hand side, all right, we want to ensure that when we are doing a conversation lesson, our approach is very gentle with corrections. If the corrections are needed, if they are, saying some, giving us some really, really, bad grammar, and it's something we definitely need to correct right then and there, of course, maybe we can make an exception, but we would rather hold and wait till the end of what they are saying, maybe underline something and return back to it, making a note at the end of their sentiment or toward the end of the correction period. All right, so we want to have a discussion. We want to have a free-flowing discussion for the learners so they can enjoy the conversation and they can get speaking time without being interrupted. All right, so we want to create an authentic, genuine conversation amongst you and your student. We want to get them passionate about speaking and stimulate their speaking. All right, so also with this comes your extension, your questions extensions, your expansion of the topic. All right, you're validating your students' opinions as usual. All right, and just ensuring that all the while you are making sure that you're hearing your students and you are making sure that you are engaging your students. All right, so conversation, if it is a conversation lesson like daily talk, free talk, something like this, we are engaging our learners fully with this right side of the brain. All right, then we go to the left approach, the left side of the brain here. All right, we really want something, our approach again is going to be drilling. So if we come to like interview lessons, business lessons, or textbook style lessons, we want to ensure that our corrections are on point. We're making use of our annotations, whether it's in Zoom or VUV. We are using underlines. We are keeping the screen clear and clean. Our annotations are clean on the screen. It's not messy. Our students are able to see our corrections. They are done immediately. It's not a delayed correction. And we are explaining why we are correcting, and we educating our students on what the correction actually is so they can learn from that correction. All right. So we're going to speak a little bit more about that in a sec. But those two approaches definitely work, and let's learn when and where we can use those approaches. So we won't be sectioning your lessons into 50%, 50%, but rather we'll be alternating those approaches as we go, right? So sectioning your lessons. So sectioning your lessons typically works best when we are usually having an hour lesson or more. I know that we do 25-minute lessons, but you'll find that those fly by very, very fast. I'm sure you all know. So typically these sectioning of the lessons work a lot better with hour or an hour plus. So what you want to do with your sectioning of your lessons, your introduction to the topic, if it's a daily talk lesson, you want to give an opening question to stimulate the learner, introduce the topic, and get the student talking about the topic. This is when we will pull back on correction, and we won't rely too much on correction. If there is correction, it will be gentle, it will be delayed, and it will be conducive to confidence for the learner. All right, so that will be the right-hand side, right? The approach, the gentle approach, right? Then we go ahead to the reading side. Then we want to go to the left-hand side approach, right? Where we are correcting pronunciation, but never interrupting the student during the reading. Okay, so any questions so far? Just before I go on? Okay, let me know at any stage if you do. Right, so after the reading, never interrupting the students, all right? If there is something, of course, they usually do have questions. If they've mispronounced a word, they do tend to stop anyway. Some of them do tend to brush over the word. Maybe we can just give a little underline and wait for them to finish, and then we can do pronunciation work, if any. All right, that will be your left-hand side, and that's when we can either do your choice, immediate correction, just depends if we can get it in there, but we don't want to interrupt the student. All right. Then we want to do vocabulary work and vocabulary extension. All right. So this will also be with immediate correction. So this approach is going to be immediate. It's going to be quite formal. And again, you're going to be explaining to the students as to why, if there is any correction, why is this a noun? Is this a verb? Why did I get it wrong? You know, why am I using it wrong? How can I use it? You're going to be explaining, you're giving them that educational value. Right, the next one, sentence building and modeling. Also, again, that left-hand side approach, right? Educational value again, and that's also going to be immediate, right? Statement discussion for reading, CCQ comprehension. So that's taking maybe parts, I think I have it in my old PPT here, just as an example. Yeah, here we go. So what I mean by statements, just pulling out statements from a reading. You know, for example, you know, some of us are satisfied with our current status. You know, then we can say, are you currently satisfied with your, you know, current status? You know, what do you think about that? You know, do you think everyone is, or is your family? You know, we want to pull out some statements, concept check there if we can. All right, that will be more open-ended, maybe not immediate correction there. It's more opinion-based. All right, so we again building up their confidence, making them more confident in the topic, and giving them more speaking time. Right, and then the last one, they express your opinion and discuss. So this is when gentle correction does come into play again. For the last one, this is when we can relax a little bit and give the student the floor, and our corrections, of course, can take a little bit of a backseat, and we want to just inspire some good, authentic conversation without immediate correction. Feel free to make use of the chat box if you can, and also typing on the screen and having it on the side, underlining, and then saying to them maybe, you know, you spoke so beautifully there, you know, check out this, you know, if you would like any tips on this, you know, just a very gentle approach, especially when it's opinion-based answers, right? So let's go on to some correction tactics. So not every mistake needs to be noted. In fact, as the purpose is to encourage, overcorrection would be counterproductive. This does not mean to say that you shouldn't be correcting at all. That's why they are there. They would like to learn more. Accuracy is a goal of theirs. But note, if writing on the board distracts the students, do it on paper and transfer it onto the board, right? So here we would say, for us, we want this I would recommend actually doing this on your actual screen. So previously I stated that maybe using the chat box if you're taking a back seat, but if we are using corrections for our left side or for our immediate, perhaps using the screen is better because seeing is believing. All right, so when we're trying to promote accuracy with our students, we would really like them to see what we're doing. And unfortunately, with a chat box, they may have it open, but it's quite small. We can't underline, we can't square off. You know, it is quite nice for them to see all of it at once, because if you go to another page, maybe that writing you have to take away. But then I really suggest asking the students if they would like the session recorded so they can get more educational value from your corrections. All right. So I know it's maybe some people don't like to have their sessions recorded, but it really, really makes the world of a difference for students who are going for accuracy. All right. So yes, not every mistake needs to be noted, but when corrections are being noted, it's better to not use the chat box all the time, but rather have it on the screen. So when you are recording the session, when you take those corrections away, it is recorded for the student, and they can then look back at the session and see where they've gone wrong and where they can learn from your corrections. All right. And most of them will take up that offer, actually. Most of them would like to have the session recorded. I think a lot of them actually, in my experience, either don't know that they can record it or they just don't ask. So they do actually really like it. Especially I found with pronunciation, some of them really enjoy you recording the session and then having you read the reading, and then they read the reading, and then comparing the pronunciation as well. So it's also just another, if they want some more educational or language value from their lessons, recording is definitely a really good tool. All right. And then just ensure that you are writing out your mistakes as well as the correction, and making sure that you, if you are recording the sessions, make sure you are differentiating between the correct and the incorrect there. Right. Make sure you are modeling for your students, especially if they are having a hard time. So perhaps they are not getting a concept correctly. What you can do is model for your students. So answer your own questions, perhaps, or perhaps using the vocabulary word that they are struggling with. So giving an example of your own or answering your own questions. Right. The next one would be to validate. Again, I think I'm going to say that a million times, but I just can't stress how important that is. I say it in every session because it's so true. Validation is the adult version of praise. So for them, they don't want claps and they don't want high fives. They want validation for what they've said. So praise, I think, is more for the kiddies. Validation is more for your adults. And I think that's, very age appropriate for your adults. These are businessmen, these are doctors, these are, college students. So validation is extremely important for their learning process, right? And also this one is going to be to assess your learner. So note and then customize. So this can go for your new learners as well as your old learners, right? So for your new learners, assessing your learner for their level, noting that, and then customizing their material, customizing the way your pace, the way you speak, your accent, all of that, customizing for your student. So you can enjoy the lesson as well as the student. All right. This can also, it's a fail safe for, miscommunication, can improve your likability. I think a lot of the time, a lot of teachers, this is the way I teach, this is my teaching style, I'm not going to change. But customizing is not really, customizing is a really good way to keep your students, because it shows that you're flexible and you're willing to, go the extra mile for your students. So yeah, customizing is very important. For your older learners, you can definitely still assess your learners. So assessing their likes and dislikes, I think that's pretty obvious. Remembering things about them. And and also anticipating their needs in terms of topics. So if you are, what you'll find if you have a student for a very long time, they tend to hand you the reins in terms of material and topics. So just ensure that if they do that, you are actually choosing topics that keep them there, then customizing it to their likes. I have a student, Alan, I know that he's not going to like, the TV lesson. I know he's not going to like the, investors lesson, right? That's just not his style. So I'm going to choose something else. I'm going to choose something he likes. So knowing your students, getting to know your students and choosing topics and material that pertains to your students is very, very important. All right. And still assessing them constantly. And if you feel still, if their material that they've chosen is not conducive to them, they will appreciate it if you kind of voice that to them. So I've had a student before who's chosen, I think it was business communications or that PDF, and she had no interest in the business lessons at all. And, it was not conducive to her speaking. Her talking time was so low, and she was not interested at all. And we just changed that material right up. I gave her a few suggestions. And at first she was a little bit uncomfortable because she felt like business was, that was kind of, I'm not really sure why she felt that way, but she felt like she needed to do business English. And then we changed the material to daily talk, to something a bit more relatable to her, having the time of her life now. So don't be afraid to, call out to your students and suggest some material that might pertain more to what they're going through, relate more to their lives at the moment. Right. So let's head off to our last slide. Okay, or second to last. Okay, so this is also just a correction tactic. I'm sure some of you will be familiar with this, but it's just a nice reminder as well. Something that you don't have to do in all of your classes, but it might be for some of your sensitive Sallys out there who, or maybe some of you are a little bit sensitive who don't like to correct. So this is also a heads up for you guys. So this is the sandwich method. So if you find it difficult to give correction, or you find a student that's particularly sensitive to correction, the sandwich method is perfect for this, because you are going to praise your student. It's going to be like a little sandwich. Okay, it's kind of a psychological hack. It's going to boost. It's actually an amazing hack because it's boosting your confidence of your student, and it's going to make you feel good. It's going to make you feel, like you're doing your job as well. So you're going to praise your student, all right, for something that they did well. You're going to highlight and correct the mistake that they've made. And then you're also going to praise a student for a second thing that they've done well. All right. So it's going to the feedback is right in between those two praises. And you don't have to dig or fabricate those two praises or those two validations at the top and the bottom. You don't have to. You can make notes throughout the session like you should be, anyway, what they're doing well and what they need to work on anyway. You don't need to fabricate those kinds of things anyway. So be aware of that. Make notes what your students need to work on and what they're doing well. It will serve you in the future anyway. So the sandwich method really, really helps people who are not so confident. It helps new teachers. And it also helps teachers that perhaps have become a bit complacent with corrections, and they have maybe students they've been teaching for a long time, and maybe corrections have taken a back seat, and now they feel a little uncomfortable correcting their students. This is a nice way to reintroduce corrections into your classroom. All right. Okay, another one here. So correction tips, don't just correct. Tell them why. Okay, so I was talking about this in the second slide. All right, so say your student is constantly saying, this is a very tiny error, it's usually a slip of the tongue, but if they're constantly saying this, say they speak so well, but there's just this one thing that they always say, I have some works to do all the time, but they speak so beautifully otherwise. All right, tell them why, correct them, but you keep correcting them, but they're not getting it. Tell them why you're correcting them about this, all right? Works is not tell them the difference between countable and uncountable nouns then. All right, work on that. Give them some homework about it. All right, maybe not a businessman or somebody that's got like very limited time, but make sure that they understand why you are correcting them. Don't just say, I have some work to do, and then brush over that, because it's guaranteed to happen again. If they hear that again, they're going to say, oh, countable, uncountable. Okay. All right. So make sure you educate your students on their corrections at all times if you are doing the immediate correction method. Right. And be sure to add parts of speech, root words, and make sure when you do the root words and parts of speech that it's very clean on the page as well. So when you're introducing a new word, you could just put it on the side over there. So you can have like here, I have some works to do. Work, noun, or you can say work, verb, something like that. All right. So make sure that they have extra knowledge about these words as well. Root words, I find during like reading or something is really, really nice. They love the extra information for root words. So it's really, really good. Your phonics as well. For pronunciation, they really, really enjoy getting phonetic spelling as well. So if you have the time, again, it doesn't always work in the 25-minute sessions, but do what you can, especially in the reading as well. Right, new word, new extension question to engage, and a CCQ. So if there is a new word, rather than just telling them the meaning of the word and giving them the root word or the part of speech, let's ask them an engaging discussion question about that word. Get the ball rolling, get them interested in the word. It will also help them to remember that word. So then they can use that word actively, and they can continue to use that word in the future. All right. It's also just another engaging tactic for them. So it's not becoming a humdrum, number 1, number 2, number 3, number 4, question number 5. That gets a bit boring. All right. Okay, so let's go ahead to our tips. All right, so these are just general tips. They have been mentioned previously, but they're just something I did want to drive home. All right, so always continue to assess where the material serves the students' interests and goals. All right, come prepared to class. So whether that is just having extra couple of questions or topics on a book or something just with you in case your student is not interested in the material or would like to go a different direction with the lesson. Be prepared for anything, extended questions, other topics, things like that. Also, especially in business lessons, be prepared for the terminology. Because like I've said in the last 2 trainings before, especially with business lessons, there is a lot of terminology that requires people. It's not because anyone is, silly or anything. It's just if you haven't studied business before, there is some terminology in there you will have to look up. It's not common knowledge, so you will have to look some, especially the advanced business. All right. And you don't want to be caught on the spot and having to Google like in the background and, all panicked. And you don't want to have to tell the student that you don't know. It is okay to not know, but rather you can prepare beforehand. All right. You can do that. So just ensure that you do be prepared. And also for your interview questions as well, or your interview lessons rather, just ensure that you are familiar with the interview styles, the STAR method. You are familiar with what you are doing in your interview lessons as well. All right. With that being said, of course, the role of the interviewer should be done in interview lessons. But outside of that, always avoid being the interviewer in any other lesson, right? So question number 1, question number 2, right? We aren't an interviewer, we are a facilitator, and we are a elicitor for conversation. Also prepare surefire topics, questions, and articles. So if you want your student, I've had it before, a lot of the time students will ask you for advice, they'll ask you for extra material, what kind of videos can I watch? What can I read? What do you recommend? make sure you have some surefire things that you can recommend to your students. How can I improve my writing skills? How can I improve my listening skills? These are very common questions. Maybe just ensure you have some surefire answers to these questions, all right? It doesn't always have to be very different ones. It can always be, similar ones that you hand out to students that ask. Right? Be aware of topics and questions already talked about. So this, I think, is just something very niche. It's just for people that maybe have students very often. Maybe you've had a student come in quite frequently. Just be conscious or wary of the fact that you may have asked the student the same questions over and over again. So just ensure that you keep it fresh. And some topics do tend to melt into each other. I've noticed that with some of the express yourself questions. So just ensure that you do keep it fresh and make sure that if you've got some questions that are similar from another topic, that you do try customize or engineer them to be a little bit different so that your student is engaged and they keep coming back to your class. All right. So that one is it for today. I don't believe we have time for any comments but we do have time for some questions if there is. Please feel free to stay behind if you do have any questions. If not, just have a wonderful weekend and see you guys next week if you do have a time to pop by. But thank you for now. I hope you have a good one. Bye guys.
Thank you, Teacher Jenna. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks guys. Oh, Tim, your mic's off. Oh, sorry.
It's one of my problems as a technology. Yeah, I do have, or not a question, but a bit of an issue with one student who doesn't want to be corrected.
At all? Like he's actually specifically said that to you?
She.
Oh, she said that to you?
Yeah, she doesn't say, no, I don't want to be. And I'm yet to figure out why she takes my class. And she's regular. She's been with me a long time. She likes me so much, but she even got me to teach her younger sister.
Oh,
but
that.
she doesn't like to be or doesn't want to be corrected.
I think that is just a case of she just really likes the fluency side and she's not interested in accuracy at all. I think that
because she's extreme, above average on level. The course we're doing is market leader, upper intermediate.
Oh wow! Okay, whoa, super challenging.
So she's quite a high flyer, but she doesn't want to be corrected.
Okay.
She doesn't.
Did you ever ask her as to why, or like did she just kind of brush it off if you did ever bring it up? Yeah.
Every time I brings it up, she brushes it off.
Okay. Look, I think if she keeps coming back to your class and she loves you enough to actually recommend you to family members, I think just run with it, because some students, I think, have an aversion. I think especially in China, growing up with this kind of constant being perfect, perhaps maybe I think in that regard, she just really enjoys the conversation or really enjoys the lessons with you and is not looking for the accuracy side of the lessons. I think if she wasn't coming back to you,
and yet sometimes she says she struggles, but actually her struggle is more with non-native speakers like Germans and Indians.
Maybe you could recommend to her, like, if she does struggle with that, perhaps doing recommend some off lessons, like listening exercises with accents, foreign accents. So she doesn't have to do it in class, but perhaps maybe sending her like some audios, some listening exercises.
We actually use the audio exercises in the market leader book.
Yes. And she's fine with that. She doesn't struggle too much with you in the lesson?
No, not usually.
No, I think that's very odd that she's not willing to be corrected, but she does admit she struggles with it. Yeah, that's very odd. I think just keep on offering it to her. Like, you know, just say once in a while, just say to her, you know, I am here if you would like any corrections, or I am here if you want any extra attention or material. That's what I'm here for. But I understand if you would like, you know, the flow of the lesson to be what it is. But the fact that she keeps coming back to you, you know, you're doing, I'm sure that, you know, she loves you nonetheless. So, yeah.
Well, as I said, she did get me to teach her much younger sister during the holiday time. Which,
yeah. I think it's just a case of maybe she just wants it to be a relaxing environment, maybe a low judgment environment then. Yeah.
Probably because in her career, she's quite a high flyer and under a lot of pressure.
Yeah, it's probably, yeah, her relaxing time, you know, she doesn't want to have that pressure on, you know, that's, I think a lot of the students are quite under a lot of pressure, especially the ones that are working, you know. So I think, yeah, I think just keep doing what you're doing, but maybe offer it every once in a while, maybe do offer it to her, you know, just as
I do.
Just yeah, stick it in there. But other than that, I think, yeah, perfect. Yeah, that's probably all you can do. Yeah. But Tim, it was so lovely to meet you. It was lovely to meet you.
Lovely to meet you too.
Okay.
Most of my students are like a higher level business English when it comes to adults.
Oh, nice one. Okay, awesome. Well, yeah, I'm usually, it's free talk for me. Yeah, it's free talk for me. I'm a chatterbox. But the lesson, I mean, this is going to expire, so I hope you don't think I'm rude. It's just probably going to shut down.
No,
just
I can see it up here less than 1 minute.
I know. I'm like, oh, yeah. But I hope you have a wonderful weekend, Tim. Thank you so much. Thank you.
You too.
Bye bye.
Catch you another time if I can.
Catch you. Bye-bye. Yeah, see you. Bye.
Bye bye.